Kia ora, my name's Neek Soto, you can call me Neeks. And there's nothing more familiar to a gamer than abandoning your old best friend because your new best friend just released for $70. As you just saw, I bought Tekken 8. But this ain't my first rodeo. This franchise raised me, man. I have nothing but love for it.
How are you doing this?
Most of the time.
How are you doing that?
The first Tekken game that I ever played was Tekken 4 on the PS2. Now this is the part of the video where all the older people watching go, what a baby! And all the younger people watching go,
what the Sigma is this?
But regardless of where you started in the franchise, I think we can all agree that Tekken has stood the test of time. It's been one of the fighting game franchises for the past 30 years now, directly competing with the likes of Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and even heavy hitters like Dissidia. So it's clearly done something right over the years. And what I'm wanting to do here is see if that something was there since the beginning, or if it's something that came about over time. Which is why I'm going to play all of the Tekken titles from the original to 8, including any other Tekken related titles that don't cost me my house's mortgage to buy. I'll be playing through these in release order, playing each of their story and or arcade modes until every character is unlocked, with very few exceptions. And why not? I'll be ranking them along the way too. It's pretty cool. This tier list will be based entirely on personal opinion and preference. I'll be ranking them based on how I felt about them, the innovations they made throughout the series, and a special factor which I've called Tekken ability. This is just a grade to show how much a game feels like a Tekken game. So it's honestly kinda pointless. Also, if you disagree with me at any point in this video, please let me know. I need the comments for the YouTube algorithm. So with that, let's get into it. Let's begin with the title that started it all. The legend itself, the PlayStation classic. This is... This game was released in 1994 by Namco and brought to arcades around the world. It seemed to be the first real competitor to Sega's Virtua Fighter, as it was one of the only other 3D polygonal fighting games on the market. Arcade goers weren't sure at first whether they liked the new control scheme, but as time went on, gamers adapted and people were really intrigued by what Namco had to offer, so much so that they ported the game to Sony's PlayStation and released it worldwide. It was a massive success, being the first video game in history to sell 1 million copies on the PlayStation in Japan. But still, it was a hit and players loved it. Now, looking back, it's always easy to say, yeah, it was a great game, but let's just see if that holds up to scrutiny. As an avid player and lover of the Tekken franchise, I've developed quite the expectation of quality for this series. But I'll be honest, if I started with this game, I don't know if I would have loved the series like I do now. This game is slow and frustrating and laggy. Oh man, it's so laggy. There wasn't a single fight that went by where I didn't say something like, why does it take me 20 minutes to get back up? The inputs are so annoying to do. Why does pressing back make me jump? For that matter, why do I jump so high? Every hit removes half your health, yet it feels so non-impactful. Why does Yoshimitsu look like that? Ugh! But otherwise pretty solid. This game was a revelation at the time. Nobody had seen a control method like this. Each and every face button on the controller is allocated to a different limb. The X button controls your left leg, the circle button controls your right, the square button controls your left arm, and the triangle button controls the right. These commands can still be chained together to create extremely flashy and powerful combos, but it never feels very good. Now, I understand that I have the knowledge and experience of all the games that have come out since, but still, this just isn't very nice to play. And on top of that, the story is crap. As an avid Tekken fan, I know what's happening here, but for people back in the day, this is all they got in terms of story. Yeah, alright, big smiles, Kazuya. How about a bit of exposition next time, eh? Don't get me wrong, I think this is a good game, especially for the time. It looks pretty, it does what it sets out to do and gets out of your hair. It's absolutely a fun game to play with friends, but so is Crash Bash, so I'm not sure if that's a testament to its quality. Based on everything, I think I'm going to give this game second Dan. It's a well-made game, it functions well, it keeps my attention, and it made waves in the fighting game scene, making it an incredibly important title. Not to mention being the first game in history to make 1 million sales in Japan on the PlayStation 1. but in my opinion that just doesn't make up for the sluggish gameplay and overall frustrating play experience. As a first impression of the franchise, it's not bad. They handled it well and it's got obvious potential, but there's so much that can be improved. So, let's see how they went about making those improvements with its successor. Let's move on to... After the first title dropped, gamers were frothing at the mouth to get their hands on a new Tekken game. Yes, the first game had its problems, but it was still very fun. Plus, the 3D graphics were fantastic. So people were excited to see where the franchise went next. So, in 1995, Namco went ahead and made it happen. They released Tekken 2 for arcades worldwide, instantly garnering a following and eventually becoming the highest grossing arcade game of 1996, but not before porting it to the PlayStation that same year. And when people got word of this, they immediately bought like 12 copies each. Oh my gosh! The last Tekken game was a bloody hit, and that one only sold 2.8 million. And then this one comes along and sells over double that. What did it do differently? Well, they gave Nina spaghetti here. And that made all the difference. What a graphical improvement. Just look at the intro cutscene for each game. The difference is fairly substantial, not only in the FMVs, but check out the environments too. The backgrounds of each stage are far more interesting to me. They really took a step in the right directions in terms of aesthetics. And in terms of gameplay, I immediately noticed that this wasn't as slow to respond. Barely. Instead of taking 2 working days to get up from the ground, it only takes 1. Plus, there are a bunch of new game modes. Very versatile, very fun. Thanks, Namco. In terms of story, this one is... interesting. I mean, look, Heihachi is alive!
Somehow
Heihachi Mishima
returned.
He survived the fall, and he's ready to take his revenge. That's compelling stuff. Sort of. I mean, as far as story progression goes, there's some development. Kazuya's devil form is actually important in this game. Plus, Heihachi actually learns from Kazuya's attempt to kill him and goes one step beyond. He throws Kazuya into a volcano. Then he rides off on a helicopter. I like it. It's a true business owner's mindset. Also, one of my favorite details about this game is that Kazuya, the canonical winner of the previous game, is now the final boss of this one. I just love stuff like that. For the most part, this is an absolute upgrade. A lot of the problems from the last title have been addressed, and you can really tell they tried to fix it. But unfortunately, it's still quite slow to respond, stupidly hard in some places, and comically easy in others. I feel I have no choice than to put this in second Dan as well. That might be better. That, I don't know. I think that's better. Yeah, I'll keep it like that for now. It's a definite improvement over the first game, but not so much that it ranks above it, you know? Video game sequels are at their best when they shake things up. They should build upon the familiarity of the prior games while also introducing ideas or tweaking existing ones. And while there are some new ideas here, it really didn't leave any lasting identity that I can compare to the previous game, at least from my perspective. But a lack of identity is not something that can be said about the next title on our list. It needs no introduction. Let's take a look at Now this is what I'm talking about. This is what Tekken looks like. This is what Tekken feels like. Check out those graphics, those beautiful, beautiful graphics. Oh, new game modes. Oh, and the music. Oh. After its run in arcades in '97, it was released on PlayStation in 1998, selling 8.4 million copies. People were eating this up, man. I mean, look at it, wouldn't you?
No, thank you.
The gameplay in this title is so smooth. It's quick, it's snappy, it's responsive, it flows splendidly. I swear, comparing this game to the prior two is like night and day. And why is that exactly? What makes this game just feel right? Well, to answer that, I'm gonna need to take you on a quick voyage through Tekken's early history. here we are, back in good old 1993, when the dinosaurs roamed. Before the PS1 had even launched, Namco sent their head of research managing director, Shigeichi Nakamura, to go and meet with Sony's head of computer entertainment, Ken Kutaragi. He wanted to know their new PlayStation's specifications so they could build their new fighting game, Tekken, around it. With those specs in mind, Namco created the Namco System 11, a motherboard that would fit inside of the Tekken arcade machines and run the game you'd play. The Namco System 11 was based heavily on the PlayStation's own motherboard, making it a relatively underpowered arcade cabinet. But Namco didn't mind. They were content letting Sega take the big arcades while they would rule the smaller ones, because for one thing, this device was much cheaper than the Sega Model 2. So while only the big boys would be buying Virtual Fighter, almost everywhere else would be purchasing Tekken cabinets. Both Tekken 1 and 2 were developed for this system, which I believe is what makes them feel so similar. But Tekken 3 was not developed for the Namco System 11. By the time Tekken 3 had gotten underway, Namco had just finished upgrading their System 11, and they called that finished product the Namco System 12. It's a crap name, but it's a bloody good product. And it's thanks to that new development hardware that Tekken 3's gameplay is so explosive. Considering gameplay alone, this game already gains a tier above the others for me. But that's not all this game does to endear you to it. The music in this title differentiates itself from the others. Each track sounds unique and gorgeous. Add to that, a pretty intense and dramatic story. This game takes place over 15 years after the second. Kazuya is long since dead, and his son Jin is now fighting in the King of Iron Fist Tournament 3. He makes it through the tournament and faces off against Shrek! Overdone joke, I know. But can you blame me? I mean, this story's practically begging me to make fun of it. But this next bit ain't so fun, I'm afraid. How tragic. I assume. Again, these games give no real context, they just show you what happens and let you come up with the rest on your own. I can't reiterate this enough. As a Tekken fan, I know what's going on here, and I know that this is a really cool story. But the games make no effort of telling you what's going on, none of them have. They shove some really good looking FMVs in your face with minimal dialogue and expect you to be satisfied with that. Well, I ain't. But I can't lie to you, I don't think that's going to affect where this ends up, because it's just such a good game. Even more new game modes, a plethora of new characters, secret cameo characters to unlock, you can finally pivot left and right. Tekken Ball! This game is just such a massive leap in quality that I'm going to put it above Second Dan, above Combatant, straight into Dominator. It's that good. Bear in mind, this is all subject to change as time goes on, but right now, with these three to compare, I'm pretty happy with this. Well, that was a strong showing. Tekken 3 will be a difficult one to top. But let's see if Namco can manage to do it, because after Tekken 3, they went on to create... Well, that's a weird way to spell Tekken 4. Yes, that's right. After the incredible Tekken 3, Namco decided to make a spin-off game. TEKKEN Tag Tournament is the first non-canon, non-mainline game in the Tekken series. It was also the first game on the PS2. No, I don't mean that it was the first Tekken game on the PS2, I mean it was one of the first titles released for this console. Of the 29 games to come out day and date alongside the coveted PS2, TEKKEN Tag Tournament was perhaps the most attractive option. Other than Street Fighter and possibly the sports games, Tekken was by far the most recognizable franchise here, which contributed to its huge boom of sales right off the bat. When it released in arcades in 1999, this game aimed to bring everything we know and love about Tekken and mash it into one game, and along with those beloved Tekken memories, they'd shake things up. The main concept of this game is that each fight would consist of 4 fighters, 2 who were fighting, and 2 who were waiting on the sidelines waiting for their teammate to tag them in. And with the push of a button, you can tag your character out and use a brand new one in the middle of a fight. It makes each and every fight a really interesting puzzle to try and decide on the fly whether you want to switch characters or if you want to tank it out as the one you have. But the risk there is, if you get KO'd as either fighter, you lose the round entirely. and when you tag one in, the other will gradually refill their health bar while they sit out. So it honestly adds a whole lot to the gameplay. The arcade mode is more of the same. Fight through 10 battles, defeat them all, and beat the ghost werewolf lady at the end. But now, there's a new mechanic introduced to the arcade mode. In the past 3 games, every time you choose arcade mode, you'd choose a character and that'd be it. But this time, if you're defeated, you're taken back to the character select screen and must choose your character again. Then, you'll be spat back into the fight you lost with those new characters. It's a change that really pleases the filthy casual within me. We also have a new game mode. Team Battle, where you choose however many characters, I chose 8, and fight until either your team or the opponent's team is defeated. Fun! I'll never play it again, but fun! There's also 1v1 mode, where you can experience the typical Tekken gameplay if you so choose. It really feels like they added something for everyone in this game. All the legacy characters are back from all of the series in this one game. There's a brand new gameplay mechanic to play around with, and the older style gameplay is available for those who want that. And on top of it all, it's just stunning to look at. When this game was released on the PlayStation 2, the graphics were literally next gen. This looked immaculate. The characters all have that typical PS2 plasticky look, and they all seem a bit rounded around the edges for me, but there's no denying that they look good. Something else that I noticed is that the backgrounds of the stages now have inhabitants. Teens at this school watching and cheering, island locals just getting on with their day. These are the details I love in a game. The music sounds awesome, the controls are responsive. I don't know what else to say. It's a huge improvement over the last game and has its own identity with its own interesting and unique mechanics. It's a very, very good game. But there is one issue. My copy of the game was scratched in some places. The scuffs were light enough to where I could play perfectly fine, but there was one single condition that rendered my game unplayable. Heihachi Mishima. Whenever this guy so much as glanced at my screen, my game would freeze. If I select him on the character select screen, that's a system restart. If I encountered him during arcade mode, no more game for me, I guess. Even if the demo gameplay featured Heihachi, my game would just give up. And I'm not going to let that dictate how I feel about this game, but it does mean that I didn't get to finish the arcade mode, play all the game modes, and experience the full offering that this game has for me. All because that stupid face just couldn't help but pop up on my screen. It's a bloody fantastic game, far better than the last one I reckon, which is why it's going to go in Tekken Emperor. And just imagine how I'd feel about the game if I actually got to go bowling. This could have been me. Now, with no more ado, let's give it up for the first mainline Tekken title on the PS2. This is... This game has no right being this cool. Now, when I first played this game, I understand that I was at the age range where games like Jak 2, GTA, and this game were perfectly appealing to me. But still! Before the turn of the millennium, gaming had a certain image. It was a children's pastime, and video game companies were desperately trying to keep appealing to the crowd which grew up with them. See, at this point, those who were playing the first Tekken game when they were little are now coming into their teenage years, and those who were playing the first Tekken when they were teenagers are now full-on adults. So Namco, and practically every other gaming company, decided that they had to shift gears. They would make their games darker and angstier, more gritty and realistic. That way, adults would feel less childish playing their games, and kids would think it's cool because all the teenagers would be playing them. It was a phenomenon that swept up the gaming landscape in its wings and caused schisms within fan bases about how games used to be and how they are now. Which is better? Should it go back to how it was, or should it stay on this course? And that is the era that Tekken 4 was developed in. Which brings me back to my original point about this game. It's just so cool. Look at this cover art. Jin is looking all broody and mysterious. In fact, you can't even see his face. The lightning to signify the storm within him, and the two faces in the storm to show who put those struggles upon him. It's poetry, I tell you. But anyway, once we actually start the game, we see yet another graphical improvement. It's not as big a jump as from 3 to Tag Tournament, but the characters look more realistic here, and their movements feel just as snappy and responsive. A new feature of this game is the fixed environment. In prior games, the floor and the background were infinite. You could never approach the background elements, and there was no variation in terms of stage layout. But this game decides to shift that up massively. Check it out! You can move around the stage and actually meet a wall. Instead of slowly backing up into nothing forever, there's actually stuff here which you can explore. Take this beach stage for example. You have trees, advertisements, people, water, and all of it you can approach and even touch. You can now fight in ankle-deep water. You can knock out innocent bystanders. You can use the walls to pin your opponents and combo them literally forever. You can even destroy some parts of the stage. On top of that, there's now uneven ground on some of the stages, which shift up how you have to play. If you're lying on the ground at a lower level, your opponent really has to try hard to hit you. It's a welcome new change that shifts the dynamic of the fight a whole lot. And when you win a fight, you're rewarded with some brand spanking new adaptive music, baby. Listen. How cool is that? First time in the... Wait, what?!
Somehow
Kazuya Mishima
returned.
Kazuya is alive?!
Yeah, baby, yeah! Woo-hoo-hoo! Come on!
Once again, the Tekken franchise has tricked us into believing that the death of a character was permanent. In Tekken 1, Heihachi died. In Tekken 2, he's actually alive, and instead, Kazuya died. Never mind, he's actually revealed to be alive in this game. It's a bloody roller coaster, man. It was very effective, but I hope they don't pull that trick again. As cool as it is, it's not a sustainable pattern, and it would get old eventually. But yeah, Kazuya is back. He's even in the default characters select screen. Why does he look like that? In this game, we have a brand new mode to explore. Story mode. The intros to the story mode have these absolutely gorgeous art panels to serve as visual aids for the story being told. Just look at this, man. They probably did it this way so they could save a bit of money on fully animated cutscenes. But honestly, as the opening to the very first story mode of the franchise, I think it's absolutely stunning. In this game, we see Heihachi attempting to take the ogre blood, which we saw in Tekken 3, and integrate it into his own DNA to become unstoppable. But he realizes that he lacks the devil gene, which his son and grandson both have, which would allow the ogre blood to take to his own DNA. So what does he do? Well, this psycho tracks down the corpse of his dead son so he can take a bit of it and replicate the devil gene for himself so he can use the ogre blood. He doesn't have the devil gene, he is the devil. He sends a squad of armed infiltrators to take his son's last rotting remnants from a lab which found him, only to find out shivers, dude. Absolute shivers. While this is all happening, Jin Kazama is training relentlessly in Brisbane to unlearn the Mishima fighting style, and in its place learn the ancient art of karate. Sorry, hang on. Brisbane. As in Brisbane. Australia? As in, oh mate, Jin, you're already a cracking fighter, mate. No need to train even harder. That Brisbane. Heihachi realizes that the best way to bring Jin and Kazuya into his reach is with another King of Iron Fist tournament. So can you guess what he does next? Jin hears of the tournament and joins to exact his revenge on Heihachi for his betrayal, while Kazuya joins because he wants Jin. In the end, Jin is kidnapped before he is defeated and taken to Heihachi's dojo. Kazuya ends up winning the tournament and demands to see Jin so he can absorb the power within him for himself. But that's when things get interesting. Jin fights till his last breath and defeats his father. No, whatever that is. But now, the only thing standing in Jin's way is the true monster here. He is weak and weary, but gives it his all, just like that day long ago. This is the man who trained you, who you trusted. He proclaimed to take you under his wing, and when you'd finally given it all to him, when you'd finally completed the ultimate goal you'd both set towards, when you'd finally defeated what you thought to be the greatest hatred of your life, never again. Jin would show him that he was not just a boy, not just a tool to be used at his leisure. He would regret that night. Jin will avenge his broken heart. This will avenge his broken heart. But is this what his mother would have wanted? The story of this game is moving in a way that I never thought a fighting game could be. Its controls are buttery smooth, its aesthetics and style are unmatched, and its music differentiates itself from the other titles. And even without Tag Tournament's gimmick, it still feels unique in its gameplay, given the uneven floors, destructible environments, and utilizable walls. All that in a cupful of nostalgia, and this game becomes the first Lord of Destruction on the list today. Although it does bring up Australia, so... But hey, we've finished Tekken 4, which must mean we're moving on to Tekken 5. This video's been a bloody breeze. If you're still watching, check that progress bar. It should be exactly halfway through. And that would be very satisfying to look at, but that's not halfway. We've done 4 Tekken games. There are 8 in total, 10 plus Tag Tournament, so this should be the halfway point. Why are we not even halfway through? What kind of drivel do I have to be talking about for us not even to be halfway through yet? Right, so here's the catch. I don't have a Game Boy Advance. I don't even have a Game Boy. Closest thing I got is this. So some may consider how I played this game to be a little less than savory. Tekken Advance was released exclusively on the Game Boy Advance on the 21st of December 2001. Namco must have really wanted people to buy this for Christmas, eh? And you know what? I would. As would 1 million others, evidently. This game is surprisingly great. It was considerably simplified to fit the Game Boy's control scheme, but the boys over at Namco have really made this work, and it feels really good. Don't laugh. I couldn't play this on official hardware, which hurts me to my core. But I can imagine, right? I can imagine getting this as a kid on Christmas and having a Tekken game which you can play anywhere. On the school bus, at a restaurant waiting for your food, at church when you think nobody's looking. Could have pulled this out and it would have been heavenly. For Game Boy Advance, this looks fantastic. And while the music isn't great, it's a lot more than you might have expected from a game like this. The characters look right, they sound right, they move right. Look at this, you can strafe left and right in this game. Couldn't do that in Tekken 1 and 2, and those games are 3D. Imagine getting out 3D'd by the only 2D game on this list. And what's more, presumably to make up for the dip in technicality, this game also includes Tag Mode from TEKKEN Tag Tournament. Bro, why is this so good? If you look past the downfalls caused by the system it's on, it truly, sincerely goes above and beyond your expectations. Other than the simplified controls and at times crunchy sounding music, I have no No, I escaped you. I left your game behind. You won't ruin this perfect game! You won't ruin this perfect game! Yes, I've given this game Combatant. It truly is fantastic for what it is, and given the hardware it's on, it excels. But the question is, would I prefer to play this over any of the mainline type? Well, yes, evidently yes. Alright, now we can move on to the mainline stuff once again, so let's do just that with the next game on the list. That doesn't look right. Yes, alright, I know this ain't a Tekken game. But look, there's a Tekken right there! Right there! I won't spend too long on this for obvious reasons, but let me give you a very brief overview. Soul Calibur is another fighting game series that utilizes weaponry in its combat. Each fighter uses some kind of weapon to fight, giving this game very diverse and very fun-feeling combat. The first game in this series was released in 1997, and this game was released for arcades in July of 2002, but I don't care about any of that, because we're here to talk about Tekken. Soul Calibur II released for GameCube, Xbox, and PlayStation 2 all at once, and each release had its own exclusive character to play as. On the GameCube release, you could play as Link from The Legend of Zelda. On Xbox, you could play as Spawn. And you guessed it, on the PlayStation, you can play as Heihachi. Which is why I'm even bothering to bring this up in a Tekken video. This game feels great to play. It's very fluid and responsive. The control method is quite different, having to press a face button to block rather than just walk backwards. And the inputs are completely different. But once you get the hang of it, it's really very fun. And it looks great too. This is a very good fighting game. It feels quite different from Tekken, but I tell you what, when you've been playing these in such quick succession, the variety is welcome. I'm gonna give this game... Okay, you know what? I would give it Tekken Emperor if it was a Tekken game, but since it ain't... Yeah, it feels wrong to put it above any Tekken games, but it's just a good game. Alright, stupid detours are now out of the way. I'm feeling refreshed after those two outlier games and ready to get back into it, so for goodness sake, can we just play a regular Tekken game? Well, according to most reviews, it doesn't get more standard than... I hate this game. I'll tell you why in a bit, but for now, let's talk about the objective stuff. The series director, Katsuhiro Harada, decided to step away from the company due to pressure from gamers and superiors regarding the poor sales of Tekken 4, but his boss, knowing the excellence of the fourth game I'm sure, managed to bring him back in to work on the next one. So, he worked his bottom off for 2 years before releasing Tekken 5 for arcades on the 15th of November 2004. He intended for this game to be the best in the franchise. Yeah, alright, I'll be the judge of that, buddy. He aimed to make this the biggest and most action-packed title yet, and when it released for the PS2 on the 24th of February 2005, people around the world got to see his vision come to fruition. This game is huge! The roster is almost 10 slots larger, and you know what more characters means, don't you? More story modes! Okay, so the story of this game kicks off immediately after the events of Tekken 4. Jin has just defeated Kazuya and Heihachi and flown off. The two mentioned, now just waking up from their scuffle, are immediately surprised by an ambush of Jack robots intent on killing them. In turn, for the first time in the series, we see the two Mishimas fighting a common enemy together? Not for long though. Kazuya suddenly remembers that he hates his dad and runs off, only for Heihachi to die. Heihachi is dead? Just kidding, actually, he's alive. Jin then awakens and hears of the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5, and he joins, because he feels like he should? He fights through the tournament and eventually loses to his friend and rival, Hwoarang. Oh gosh.
Hwoarang. Hwoarang.
Hwoarang. Hwoarang. Alright. He fights through the tournament and eventually loses to his friend and rival, Hwoarang, and transforms into his devil form out of pure anger. He then goes on to meet the one behind the Mishima Zaibatsu and the one who started the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5. Jinpachi. His grandfather. A lot of the poetic justice and subtle nuances of the last game are kinda going out the window. Honestly, Jin's whole motivation for joining the tourney is kinda lame. Jinpachi was calling to him, I guess? I don't know, it could be a lot better. But anyway, on to more greener pastures. There are new stages, and they're beautiful too. You can customize characters' appearance, and there's a whole entire other game inside your game. This really is the biggest and prettiest Tekken game yet. You're waiting for a butt, aren't you? Well, the stages are very pretty, yes. They feature sprawling and beautiful backgrounds, but they also lack the uneven ground and obstacles that make gameplay in Tekken 4 more interesting. The gameplay itself is also slightly different. In my experience, I felt that it was slightly more stiff than in Tekken 4. It was still very good. It had that classic Tekken feel and was even more responsive than in prior entries. It just slightly lacked that fluidity that Tekken 4 had in spades. There are a lot of new characters and a whole heap of returning ones, as well as a secret fighter. But let me tell you now why I hate this game. It's so hard! I mean, look, I'm not the most competent Tekken player out there. Anybody who's even close to competitive level is going to look at my gameplay and go,
This person doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
but I'm at least decent enough. I've been able to beat every game up until now on hard mode, but this is a different beast. Call it a skill issue, but I switched it back to easy mode. But even then, when I got to the boss fight, for some reason he didn't even let me think about landing a hit on him. This is easy mode? Are you joking?
That's such a cheat, man. It's such a cheat. I can't do anything. Yeah, see, that's just so stupid.
The moment I do anything, the moment I press a button, you stun me.
You continue. Get ready for the next battle.
This game is great. I'm not going to argue against that. It looks great, it feels great, it just doesn't look or feel as great as the last game. That game had interactable environments that made combat far more interesting, and Tekken 5 got rid of that. Tekken 4 had fluid combat that felt great to play, and Tekken 5 just doesn't feel as good, as fluid. On top of that, the story felt uncompelling to me. The new additions are nice, but honestly, customizable outfits in a subpar action puzzle game don't make up the difference for me. However, it also comes with Tekken 1, 2 and 3's arcade mode. That's 4 games for the price of 1. That's a bloody great deal. I just can't ignore that. In all, it's a very good game. One of the best so far. I just absolutely hate it and will never return to it. Anyway, I need a break. Jinpachi has so poisoned my Tekken reviewing mind that I just want to play anything other than Tekken right now. No hope of that while making this video though. What's next on the list anyway? Oh no. Look, I know what I said, but please don't make me play.
Damn it! Come on.
Whatever. Namco. Death by Degrees is an action beat-em-up style game where you play as the character Nina Williams of Tekken fame. So this is a Tekken game! No, not really actually. A Tekken game is a very specific experience. To make a Tekken game, you need the main game mode to be a locked perspective traditional fighter, technically complicated combos, at least some of the iconic characters, and finally, the patented Tekken control method, which is why Soul Calibur ranked so high. It fills 3 of the 4 criteria, but this game is nothing like that. Death by Degrees, originally known as Nina, very creative, released for the PlayStation 2 on the 27th of January 2005, and everybody who played it thought the exact same thing. What the hell am I looking at right now? This game received middling reviews when it came out, and I say, fair enough. This game is truly a game. It looks about as good as any later PS2 game, and its control method is interesting, I'll give you that. When you play this game, you must move Nina around with the left analog stick, and you have to attack with the right analog stick. These buttons are basically just for show now, so that makes the combat pretty fresh in my opinion. For the first 5 minutes, because once you get used to it, you're just flicking the stick around to get everyone off your back. But in all, it works. It reminds me a lot of the Tekken Force mode in Tekken 3 and 4, and Devil Within mode from Tekken 5, but the controls are a whole lot simpler. You pick it up pretty quickly. You can dodge stuff with the left stick, pick up weapons and use them to fight. The camera controls are pretty sucky, but as an avid video game player, I can adapt to many scuffed control schemes. I have an N64 for goodness sake. And now for the story. Nina Williams has been hired by the CIA and MI6 to join a team that is attempting to infiltrate Komita, a notorious criminal organization. The team's strategy involves gaining access to the target through a fighting tournament to be held on the Amphitheatre. I'm kidding, the story's fine, it's just nothing special. Now this game, I actually didn't finish. I managed to beat the first boss, which overall took me about 2.5 hours, and at that point I realized that this video is not about Death by Degrees. I'm literally only mentioning this game because it exists and nobody knows. Plus, when else am I ever going to be able to talk about my copy of Death by Degrees? So, since this game is barely even trying to act like a Tekken game, I ignored my rules set at the beginning of this video, and I stopped playing. I'll be playing all of the arcade modes and/or story modes until I've unlocked every character, or until I've finished the story.
So that was a lie.
Now this may seem like a cop-out, which it is, but the thing is, I got permission from a friend who watched me play most of it. I asked him if I should play the entire game, which he promptly responded with yes, no hesitation. But after 2 hours of watching me slog through this game, I asked him if I could stop. And he said, and I quote, "The only way I'm going to take it back is if, in your video, you specifically say, this guy was the reason I had to play it. He watched a good chunk of the game with me,
and at that point he said, bro, you good? You can move on."
I believe I've satisfied my end of the deal. So now, onto the ranking. This game is not awful. It's totally inoffensive, in fact. It's pretty lascivious, it has terrible camera controls, but otherwise, it's a pretty average game. However, as a Tekken game, this game sucks! If this were a tier list of games in general, this game would go right in the middle here, but since it's a Tekken list, alrighty. It was a brief detour, but a refreshing one. With all that mindless combat, I'm looking forward to an actual Tekken game next. Jinpachi is still haunting my dreams, but as long as he ain't here, I'll be smiling. So, with that, let me introduce the first Tekken game for the PlayStation Portable. The best looking portable game I'd ever seen at the time, the one and only. This game was released in arcades and on PSP in December of 2005 as something of an update to Tekken 5. It's basically the same game, but it has some differences. Later on down the line, after some Tekken sweats complained a bunch, Namco released a downloadable version of this game for PS3 and managed to sell 2.2 million copies over its lifespan, which is not bad for a portable spin-off title. The main difference here from Tekken 5 is that every character is unlocked from the word go. Now, you'll have to forgive me, but when trying to collect footage for this game, my PSP 3000, my only one capable of capturing footage, gave up on me. I really don't know why, but I was still able to play this game on my 1000 at least. The only issue now is that I don't have any footage of the game, so I'm just gonna have to rip someone else's gameplay footage off. Here we go. I better not say that name, I'll probably mispronounce it. But here they are, I used their footage, go sub. Now, on to business. This game is immaculate. As a reminder, here's the last portable game we looked at, and here's this one. See the difference? The console that this game released on, the PSP, was one of the most impressive commercial consoles out there. It's like a PS2 in your hands. And on top of that, it actually has all the face buttons of a regular PlayStation controller. Or minus one analog stick, but you're still just as much a man to me, PSP. Somehow, it has everything Tekken 5 had, with some trade-offs. First of all, no Devil Within mode. Secondly, no Legacy title arcade modes. However, it does have 2 brand new characters and a bunch of new stages, plus a brand new game mode called Tekken Dojo. And on top of that, there was actually straight up network play, so you could search for a game online and match up with someone else who's doing the same. That's such a cool step forward, and this marks the first implementation that I can think of the internet into the Tekken franchise. However, the gameplay is a little crusty. Now this is not a large device, which is both impressive and a hindrance. Impressive because it's incredible that everything runs so well on this despite its size, and it's a hindrance because it's not the most comfortable play experience. It provides everything you need from a controller, but its buttons are a little too close together, its grip is kinda just flat, and for such a technical game as Tekken, that's not a superb combination. But once again, if I invoke the spirit of my inner child, I think to myself, man, I would have loved this. Everything good I said about Tekken Advance is quintupled here. If I had this game as a kid, I wouldn't put it down. It looks stellar, you can play online and face actual people, even though you might have no friends who care about the game, and regardless of the fact that the story mode is literally the same as Tekken 5, this game just does it for me. Speaking of story mode, I suppose I'd better beat this game at least once, right? Just to fill the video's criteria of completion. This game is a genuine marvel. The fact that it works as well as it does in and of itself is astonishing, but there are some things that make it less than perfect, and that does hurt it a wee bit. However, considering this is a portable game and a legitimate Tekken title that stands toe-to-toe with the rest of them, I feel I have no choice but to give it Tekken Emperor. It's so good. Also, I've just made the executive decision. I'm gonna change these back. I feel like it just looks a bit better. Yeah, I reckon that's better. Now then, it is time to move on. I know we had a bunch of fun reliving my Tekken 5 final boss PTSD, but we gotta keep moving forward. So now it's time to revisit the Tekken game that I probably sunk the most time into back in the day. The underappreciated work of art that is... On the 26th of November 2007, this game was released for arcades utilizing Namco's new System 357. Based on the awesome power of the PlayStation 3, this system promised beautiful graphics with smooth gameplay at 60 FPS. After its run in arcades, Namco decided that they weren't done with this game yet. So, after making even more improvements, they released an updated version of the game titled Tekken 6 Blood Rebellion. How edgy. That must mean you're very cool. The home console release was in fact a port of Blood Rebellion, simply titled Tekken 6, which didn't confuse me and make me have to restart my research, no siree. So, on the 27th of October 2009, this game finally released for the PlayStation 3, and what the hell are you doing here? Get out! This is a Tekken video, it has nothing to do with you, get out! So, I guess Tekken has been released on Xbox consoles now? You're still not welcome here! It's not the strangest thing that's happened. I mean, Tekken Advance exists, for goodness sake. But for some reason, this just feels wrong. But regardless of which console you play this on, it's gorgeous. Upon beginning the game, you can immediately tell that this is next gen. Look at that bird! It's a bloody nice bird. This game's graphics just blew me away right off the bat. But that's to be expected. I mean, every game since bloody Tekken 3 has had an increase in graphics, so we're just gonna have to see what else this game brings to the table. As you proceed into the game's menu, you see... What's this? Scenario Campaign. Sounds interesting. Let's take a look. Was it a dedicated story mode? Well, you can do that? Yes, this game features a single story mode that tells the story of the Mishima family. Its gameplay is styled after Tekken 5's Devil Within mode, and it features two brand new characters, Lars Alexanderson and Elisa Boskonovich. The game gives you this heavily stylized intro sequence to catch you up on events. And this is how I know the story of the prior games. Gosh, couldn't they have just done this from the beginning? It's far easier than trying to deduce any kind of meaning from this. What's happening? Anyway, Lars is part of Tekken Force, a privatized military force that operates specifically under the Mishima Zaibatsu. However, under the new rule of Jin Kazama, the most recent winner of the King of Iron Fist tournament and in turn the head of the Zaibatsu, Tekken Force is being used for great evil. Jin starts a new world war on everyone. Lars, one of Tekken Force's commanders, heads a rebellion against Jin and leads them to defection. On the way, he loses his memory with a bonk to the head and meets this robot chick. Later, he finds out that he's Heihachi Mishima's son. Namco, do you really expect people to sit through 5 hours of this gameplay to find out that there's a new member of the Mishima clan? I can't believe that you would hide such a huge revelation behind this much. Well, okay, hang on, that was pretty cool. That might have been worth it. Eventually, Lars catches up with Jin to finally stop him, but his companion turns on him. Turns out she was programmed by Jin to do as he says. Sad. But now, the end of the game. Kazuya gives Lars a quick welcome to the family fistfight and leaves him to finally confront Jin. This is it. This is what it's all been leading up to. At the end, Jin reveals why he's been doing this whole war thing. It was all to draw out an ancient and powerful being called Azazel. Jin planned to lure out Azazel, utilizing negative energies. Energies that might be caused by, say, a war? He planned to kill it with his devil powers, hoping that he himself would also die in the clash, ridding the world once and for all of the devil gene. Ignoring him. So when Azazel finally arrives, this is Azazel by the way. Why is Gonzo the Great in my Tekken game? Jin takes him on, tackling him down a pit and battling until they're both buried by sand and rubble. And with that, the world was rid of the two greatest evils it had ever begotten. Jin Kazama is dead. But he lived!
Somehow
Jin Kazama
returned.
If you somehow haven't realized it by now, deaths in the Tekken franchise are entirely fatuous, at least when it comes to the Mishima family, that is. But I'm happy to say that they did turn me around on the story here. At first, I found it wholly unbelievable that Jin, of all people, someone whose morality is so ingrained into his character, someone whose entire story arc revolves around justice, could be capable of this kind of atrocity. But when I learned why, I felt it was an extreme, but one that I can believe Jin's striving for. He's a self-sacrificial man. He proves that at the end of the campaign, and him sacrificing so many people in this war was almost understandable. He's not asking anything from anyone that he wouldn't willingly give up himself. I can understand why he did it, and I can accept that it's something that he would do. That being said, it's still very evil, and he's now added to the list of Kazama/Mishima family members who are terrible. The only one exempt from that list is friggin' Lars, and we just found out that he's one of them! But even though I've come to accept that part of his character, and I really quite like the story aspect of it, I just hate the scenario campaign in this game. It's so unfun and I'm never touching it again. Alright, if you skipped your way here, welcome back. Basically, the story was great, but the gameplay was bad. So now let's move on to the main gameplay. First off, the visuals are amazing. You could take a screenshot from any moment during the combat and it would be desktop wallpaper material. And the combat is so punchy. It feels fantastic to land a hit. And just to necessitate that further, this game introduces a new mechanic called Rage. This is a function where if you reach a low enough health, you'll become stronger. Your hits will deal more damage and your body will glow red. This serves to make the game feel even more hectic and powerful. The footage I have here does not do it justice. It feels incredible to play. On top of that, destructible environments are back. And this time, they impact the layout of the stage. Yep, you can break through the floor with your attacks and continue the fight at the level below. In my opinion, it's still not quite at the level of Tekken 4's environments, but it's pretty great. Now, the arcade mode doesn't end with a cutscene for each character anymore, which I miss sorely, but the immense number of Tekken mode cutscenes more than make up for it. Plus, check out this cute reference to Tekken 2's arcade mode. Like father, like son. You'll be looking at it for quite a while though, because the loading times in this game are abysmal! Let me show you the raw footage of me waiting for a game to start. Really speaks for itself, doesn't it? In terms of where to rank this one, gee, I don't know. See, I really like this game, and it's a fantastic addition to the lineup. It has really high highs and also really low lows. I think the safest option for me is to put this game in combatant. I really want to put it higher, but that's story mode. I'd say that out of all of them, it feels the best and it looks the best, but it just falls short on practically every other category. That's a shame. I really wanted this one to be S tier. Goodness, that one took a while. Let's blast through the next few, shall we? Alright, next up is one that I've been anticipating for a while now. A follow-up to a very, very fun title for the PlayStation 2. No, I'm not talking about Death by Degrees 2. This is... When it comes to opinions on this game, I've heard nothing but... No, that's it, nothing. It seems like this title didn't make a huge impact on the gaming scene. Which makes sense. It was released for the PlayStation 3 on the 13th of January 2013. The PlayStation 4 was scheduled to come out later that year. This game sold around 1.5 million copies, which isn't bad at all. But compared to the other games in the Tekken library, it pales in comparison. Which is a shame, because the critical reviews of this game are actually very positive. Those who played it really loved it. And hey, I bloody loved Tag Tournament 1. That was a fantastic game, so I have high hopes for this one. Immediately upon reaching the menu screen, we're hit with an assault of personality. Check it out, there's a dynamic menu screen. When you hover over the different options in the menu, the background will match it. Want to get straight to fighting? There's the arena. Want to customize your characters? Boom, clothes shop. Even the PlayStation Store option is creative. Billboards! Because they're trying to sell you stuff. Go on then, take all my money. When we actually begin the game, we get... Whoa! Was this game developed by Masahiro Sakurai? Why is everyone here? Looking over this roster, I can name only 2 characters from the Tekken franchise who I noticed were absent. The first being Gunjack, but he was sort of replaced in the Tekken games by Prototype anyway. The second being Gon, the secret cameo character from Tekken 3. They probably didn't have the rights to have him in this game, so that's understandable. But literally everyone else is here. Even final boss characters, like Ogre, Unknown, and... This seriously feels like a Marvel movie or something. The gameplay is very similar to Tekken 6, but it obviously shares the main gimmick of the first Tag Tournament game. You can swap characters mid-fight and strategically use this to your advantage. It adds tremendously to the combat and does nothing but improve the game in my eyes. When it comes to game modes and options for play, there isn't a whole lot that's new here. The only real new game mode here is one called Fight Lab. Now this is quite an interesting game mode where you must train a combot to fight through various different challenges and do different combos. Sounds fun, let's give it a go. Yeah, the game decided I can't play this game mode actually. So I guess I'll try online play. I actually have an online code for this game, so I'll see what's up. Right. Okay, whatever then. I guess I'll just unlock Tekken Bowling and play that at the very least. Oh, come on! Okay, this was incredibly good. It improves on the prior tag game exponentially, and since it has the tag mechanic, it improves on Tekken 6's gameplay as well. But when it comes to innovation, this game is quite lackluster. I've been told that the Fight Lab is a pseudo-story mode, so I'm sad that I couldn't include that in my analysis. But other than that, there really wasn't much new to this title. It was just Tekken 6's gameplay with the tag mechanic and every Tekken fighter under the sun. It's a brilliant title, honestly it really is. It just doesn't do enough to differentiate itself from the first Tag Tournament game. The only real thing that I identify with this game is the fact that it had a Wii U release. So I think it's going to go with its predecessor in Tekken Emperor. Even though it improved a lot on the past releases, it didn't do enough to put it over the top of its predecessor for me. It didn't even have Tekken Bowling. I'm genuinely cut up about that. Speaking of the Wii U, our next title is an oft-forgotten one because of the console it's on. But hopefully, regardless of what it was released on, this game will be just as good. So without further ado, let's jump into one of the most interesting Tekken releases out there. Once again, I did not have the means to record my gameplay footage, so thank you Project Longplay, go sub. Anyway, On the 14th of February 2012, Namco released this game for the Nintendo 3DS. Honestly, I feel it's a little strange that Namco didn't put more of its games on Nintendo hardware. It seems to me like they have a good working relationship, but as far as I can tell, this game was something of a desperate ploy. Tekken Tag Tournament 2 underperformed in terms of sales, so Namco really had to start collecting a bit more revenue to fund their next big title, which resulted in this little gem. And while it may not have started off this way, you can definitely feel some of the influence of their financial situation in this title. It looks pretty great for a 3DS title in my opinion, but the rest of the product is kinda slapped together. The menu is generic, the character models are just imports from Tekken 6 and Tag 2, and there is no story. There are some new features however, like Tekken cards, a form of reward for completing other game modes which depict artwork from prior Tekken games. They also innovated a little on the survival formula. In past Tekken games, the survival mode was one where you simply played as the same character and played against as many opponents as you can with one health bar that depletes between the separate fights. This game however has you defeat a set number of enemies with one health bar rather than going for as long as you can. That number grows, and each new goal wins you more and more Tekken cards. It's honestly a great system that I feel makes survival a lot more interesting and worth playing. However, nothing is worth playing if the gameplay and controls suck, so let's give it a go. Oh no. So, I don't want to say that the buttons are too small or that the console is uncomfortable to hold. We've all heard that 1,000 times. My hands aren't even that big. I think it's just designed for smaller people. So that does hurt the gameplay a wee bit, but it still works. It feels exactly how you'd expect a Tekken game to feel like, which is great. To me, it feels even better to play than the PSP game. Maybe that's an improvement in the game's programming, or perhaps the 3DS itself is a higher quality, I couldn't say. But regardless of the reason, it's a fine Tekken experience for all you Nintendo users out there. There's not a whole lot more to say about this game, honestly. It made some good decisions, some bad ones. The system it's on gives it some identity, but without that, it's not too unique at all. However, there is one massive feature that I haven't even brought up yet. Half the sale value of this game is a fully fledged movie that's baked onto the cartridge itself. The fact that they included an entire feature-length film in with this game boosts its retail value to me. Also, this game, and in turn this movie, mark the very first film to ever be released on the 3DS. Bit of a random claim to fame that the Tekken franchise of all things holds. Now, this is a video about the Tekken games, so I'm not going to talk about the movie at all, but you should know I did watch it on my 3DS. My eyes have never been more strained and my neck never more sore, especially since I watched it with the 3D effect active. Though I won't really talk about it, this does still impact the overall score of this game for me. It does have an identity by proxy of the system it's on, and the insane inclusion of an entire movie on the cartridge. But overall, we've had better portable games and... this one's just kinda boring. I'm gonna give it combatant. It would receive second Dan, but that movie really did bump it up. Well, that was weird. Hopefully the next title is a more conventional Tekken game. We may even be able to get ourselves another Lord of Destruction up there. So, let's move swiftly ahead to... I'm not saying all that.
PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale.
I'm not playing this. This isn't a Tekken game, you can't make me. There's nothing here that even remotely relates to Tekken. Come on! Alright, fine, but I'm only playing it once. Weird. This game is nothing like Tekken. Its control scheme and gameplay is reminiscent of Super Smash Bros., though it has many crucial differences. The main similarity between the two is the platform fighting mechanic which Smash Bros. Began. The other thing that really reminds me of Smash is the crossover element. This game, released on the 20th of November 2012, was created as a celebration of the PlayStation brand, and since Tekken was always a large part of that brand, they naturally had to represent Tekken within it too. But today, I really don't care about this game's style or feeling or intent. What I care about is its Tekken-ness. And what makes a Tekken game? Well, we've covered this topic already, and based on the criteria I said earlier, this game fills none of the boxes. Now you may be saying, oh, but Neeks, Heihachi's in this game, so that's 1 point at least. Wrong! Heihachi is in this game, yes, but this field specifically requires some of the iconic Tekken characters, not just one. And unless you count these profile picture customization options, then the only Tekken character here is Heihachi. What options are there for Tekken profile pictures anyway? And given that he's the only Tekken rep in this game, I feel it's appropriate that we talk about how well represented he actually is. So, looking at his moves, I can actually recognize a good chunk of them. As a novice, of course, I don't know how to input every command in this game, but the ones that I do are very cool, very clever little references. I mean, you can use a Tekken ball in his moveset for goodness sake, I love it! You can also call upon Kuma, Heihachi's pet bear, to come and help you fight. Wait, so there are multiple Tekken characters! That's a point in its favour! Overall, his moveset and characterization during the arcade mode cutscenes are very true to form and respectful to the source material. But let's be honest, it's not like this game was ever going to score better than bottom tier anyway. It's almost as bad as Death by Degrees when it comes to Tekken-ness. But at least it's actually a fighting game. Degrees couldn't even say that! But once again, I will say, I do enjoy this game on its own. It's just that as a Tekken game, it's awful. Right, okay, now that I know that games like that are on the list of Tekken games, I'm suddenly very afraid. I hope that the next one is at least somewhat Tekken-y. I suppose we'll just have to see. But before we get to that, I'd like to give an honourable mention to TEKKEN Tournament and its remake on the Switch. I really wanted to put them on this list, I really did, but I didn't feel I should. They don't have any Tekken characters, they don't have the same control moveset. It's completely different. The only similarities that Pokken has with Tekken is that they're both developed by Bandai Namco and they're fighting games. But if I was to put them up by that logic, then I'd have to put up every Soul Calibur game as well, and yeah, I can't do that. For now, they'll stay as an honourable mention, and they'll go up in our honourable halls of honourable honour. And speaking of honourable mentions, I have a terrible confession to make. I wrote this after already getting well into the editing process. So there I was, laying in bed looking for something to watch, when this video pops up. Coney had stolen my idea several months before I released it. Bloody plagiarizer. So anyway, I begin watching with the unfortunate knowledge that what I make could never compare, when suddenly, this graphic appears, showing all the games he's gonna play. I initially scoffed, knowing that I had considered more titles like Tekken Advance and Tekken 3D, when I suddenly realized Street Fighter X Tekken. How did I miss that? I owned this game. It was in my list for this video. I meant to cover it, but somehow I skipped it. I wrote my entire script, recorded all of my footage, and just never even thought of it. I have no idea how it happened, but it did. So let me at least rectify that by playing the game now and giving my thoughts. I hope you'll accept my sincere-ish apology as I check out.
Street Fighter Cross Tekken.
So, right off the bat, I hate to upset all you SFXTT fans, but I really don't like the art style in this game. I'm sorry, I just can't get over the fact that my Tekken characters look like this! It's heavily stylized, and that's great. I love to see that they didn't really adhere to either franchise's art style, but I personally just couldn't get behind it at all. The cast of characters is very solid. I'd say they've included just about every character that they needed to for this point in the Tekken series. And I assume that the Street Fighter side of things is equally as good at representing the series as a whole. I'm not really a Street Fighter fan, so I wouldn't know. When it comes to gameplay, this game is... well, let's just say that the title of this game is a clue for how the dev team prioritized fighting mechanics. This is a Street Fighter game first and foremost. Tekken is definitely the secondary element here. This game operates off of the Street Fighter gameplay. As a Tekken elitist myself, I was struggling with this pauper's control scheme. It's played on a typical fighting game 2D plane, unmoving, no strafing.
So uncivilized.
I admit that this game was good. It just wasn't for me. There was a lot of love put into it and a lot of work, and I appreciate that. But it felt nothing like a Tekken game. It was literally just a Street Fighter game with Tekken characters. Nothing wrong with it, it's just not my cup of tea. I'll put it in combatant. It's obviously well made and had a lot of effort put into it. I also love the idea and would so love to see a sequel done in the Tekken gameplay style, but for now, this is where the game belongs. I feel kind of bad about not liking that game. However, I can promise that the next one is going to be a bit more Tekken. This is Now this is a game I've been looking forward to for quite some time. Released on the 18th of March 2015 for arcades around the world, Tekken 7 had a very strange build-up. Not in the sense that a new Tekken game wasn't expected or anything like that, but more behind-the-scenes issues. Due to Tag 2's failure, as discussed earlier, Namco blessed the dev team with a much lower budget than they're used to. But I'm confident that this team can pull off a few miracles yet. Once released for home consoles in June of 2017, this game proved that it wasn't afraid to make changes. For starters, this is the first Tekken ever to be released for PC. Wow, that's great! There's no crossplay though. Oh, still pretty good. On top of that, this was the first Tekken game to include paid DLC. I suppose new characters are always good, even if you have to pay for them separately. 3 of the best characters in the game are DLC, making the ability to play as or practice against them a pay-to-play scenario. Damn it, Namco, not you two! Yeah, that one's kinda stink. No one likes when a DLC character becomes one of the strongest ones. As an avid Smash Bros player, I know the feeling well. However, this game's DLC does bring back a lot of legacy characters who we otherwise wouldn't have gotten. And when we take into account how well this game sold despite its lower budget, I think it's earned a bit of DLC. The style of this game has been beautifully done. The characters look incredible and the stages have never been more interesting, at least visually. To add to its style, this game slows down time to enunciate just how close the fight is. When a KO hit is about to make contact on either character, you get this beautiful effect to let you really soak in the action. But when you're that close to death, you'll probably be dealing the final blow with your Rage Art. Rage Art is a brand new feature where, when you enter your Rage mode, you may input a specific command to execute a finishing move. This will remove your Rage state, but will also be devastating to your opponent. A great addition for casuals, which, if you haven't noticed, I am. I wonder if there's anything else here that will appeal to the casual within me. Oh! Finally! Finally! I get to bowl in Tekken! Ever since I was denied the opportunity in Tekken Tag, I've been dreaming of this! Oh, this is the best day of my life! That was fun, but now on to more important matters, the story mode. There is once again a dedicated story mode in this game which focuses heavily on the character relationships and their backgrounds, specifically the characters of the Mishima family, of course. And honestly, despite this game's apparent lower budget, you really can't feel that during the story mode cutscenes. They are absolutely gorgeous in a way that no other Tekken game has been. It's cinematic. Everything is upgraded. The pre-rendered graphics, the character designs, and most importantly, the storytelling. This story finally gives us a bit of insight into Heihachi Mishima himself. The reason Kazuya hates him, the reason he aims to kill his son and grandson, and the reason his wife is not around. As it turns out, Heihachi was deeply in love with his wife, and before this whole franchise began, he was seemingly a good man. But Kazumi, Heihachi's wife, was only ever with him so she could kill him before he became corrupted and rose to power. She was ordered to do so by her clan and would not rest until it was done. But she never intended to fall in love with him too. Over the years, they lived and loved life to its fullest. They began a family and raised their boy with love and care, until eventually, he usurped the throne of the Mishima Zaibatsu by defeating his own father, and instantly became one of the world's most powerful men. But along with that prestige came a great tragedy. Kazumi had seen what he'd done, what the future held for him, and she remembered the reason she came here in the first place. It was now or never. So she took action. Even with her demonic power inherited by her clan's blood, she was simply no match. Destiny would not be stopped. He was heartbroken, but he knew that this power which she possessed did not belong in this world, so he made sure to snuff it out, even if it meant losing the final remnant of his peaceful life of love and trust. And the rest is history. It's hard for me as a Tekken fan to express how much this story means to me. I absolutely love the absurdity of this world these characters live in, the goofy character interactions, the entirely unrealistic world that they inhabit. But what I love most is that they treat their characters with respect and consistency. They never once do anything where I think to myself, this character would not do that. And the fact that we see the humanity behind the almost invincible, indomitable Heihachi is very touching. A bunch of other stuff happens in the story. Other characters are fleshed out. We find out that Lars was born to prove that Heihachi didn't carry the devil gene. Elisa is fixed back up. Jin is in a coma after the events of 6. Akuma shows up to get revenge. Wait, Akuma? Like Street Fighter Akuma? What the hell is he doing here? He's just straight up canon to the Tekken story now? What? But in the end, we conclude where we began. Heihachi versus Kazuya. Father versus son. Man versus demon. This whole sequence is incredibly climactic. It's all going to end here, one way or another. So they do the only thing they know. They fight. Kazuya gives himself over to his devil form, and Heihachi stands against that impurity. Neither will back down. They tire one another out, and result to blow-for-blow exchanges until eventually after everything. of the injustice, all of the unfairness, all of the evil that stems from this family's hatred for one another, all of it. Will burn. Until he comes back in the next one, yay! Yeah, I won't lie to you. My perception of death at this point in the franchise is practically meaningless. I mean, every single member of the Mishima family has died at some point in the series, only to return later. But something about this just feels different. And I hope that it is. Don't get me wrong, I love Heihachi. He's one of the coolest, scariest, most iconic video game villains that I can think of. Thinking that this may be the last time I see him hurts. But it's beautiful. We've seen all we can out of this character. He did his job, and now that we've seen his motivations properly, and a fitting conclusion for a man like him, we just gotta let him pass on. And I think I might know why they made that decision. The Tekken team received less money for this game, meaning it probably wouldn't be as good, meaning it probably wouldn't perform well, meaning they probably wouldn't have another chance to make a Tekken game, meaning this could be the final installment of the Tekken story. So they made sure to put all of their passion and love into this one's story, and let the Tekken franchise go out with a bang. With its overall improvements, grade A story, and a style that's unique and eye-catching, it's not a question where this game belongs. You know, I genuinely didn't think anything was going to top Tekken 4 for a while there, but no, Tekken 7 deserves it. I'm afraid to say anything else in case I sully what I already have said, so I'll just move right along. Yep, knew this was coming, especially after seeing on the list. Okay, this is not a Tekken game. I refuse to play it. Damn it, fine. He's pretty well represented. Very recognisable moves which are cleverly implemented. He's got way more inputs than any other character in the game, which is a great testament to the combo-heavy nature of the Tekken games. His stage is great, being Heihachi's dojo from Tekken 7. Heihachi appears in the background of said stage, filling a criteria. Now, technically, this game is just as bad at being a Tekken game as PlayStation whatever, and again, it does fill more criteria than degrees, but come on, I'm not putting this on my tier list. It's not even on a PlayStation console. And the only Tekken representation in the game is the DLC pack. I'm not putting it on here. Putting a Smash Brothers game on my Tekken tier list just doesn't sit right with me. Besides, the Smash Brothers series is one of my favourite of all time. It deserves its own video, so for now, I'll leave it off the list. Now let's move on to the final game of the list, and technically the first game that I brought up in the video. You ready? Let's finish strongly. The entire reason I decided to even make this video was in honor of this game's presence in my life. It's been out for quite a while, even as I'm writing this script, but it's recent enough that it's still receiving updates and new characters. So, while this game is still rather young, let's get talking about it. Now, something special about this game that sets it apart in my own personal experience is that I have no idea what the story mode contains. When I bought it, relatively close to day one, I went straight to playing online. I never even bothered with the story mode. So this is going to be interesting. Maybe it's because Tekken 7's story was so climactic and it almost felt like nothing after it could be justified, but let's hope that feeling is wrong. After the huge success of Tekken 7, the boys at Namco realised their golden goose had started laying again. Time to make a new Tekken game! On the 26th of January 2024, Tekken 8 was released for home consoles? Wait. Every single Tekken game in history was made as an arcade release, and later ported to consoles and PC. And you're telling me that finally now, 29 years after this tradition was started, they finally decide to deviate? Look, I get it. Right back then, arcades were a sure bet. People wanted to go there and socialize and spend their money on video games, so it makes sense to release your games there. But nowadays... This is gaming. This is the most lucrative platform to release your games for, well, second most. So I totally understand and agree with the decision. But there is something so small and very strange that I don't think anybody else except me cares about. If you'll notice, in almost all of the prior titles, there's this little notification somewhere on the screen at all times which says insert coin. And with Tekken 7 and 8, that little message is gone. I get that it means nothing to the console players and it's a totally superfluous detail to carry over from the arcade games, but I miss it. I don't know, it's weird. Anyway, this game makes history by being released to these first. And the fact that it's released for home consoles makes the visual quality stand out even more. This is majestic. The opening cinematic, the theming, the blatant brandishing of the characters' models and how good they look. It's absolute flamboyance and I'm here for it. And the gameplay has received some upgrades as well. This is the smoothest Tekken game yet, without a doubt. Its heavier emphasis on combos and chaining together attacks makes even a relative amateur like myself feel very good about how I'm doing. Namco have also added to the rage system introduced in the last game by giving us a power move called Heat. When in this state, you can chip away at blocking opponents' health with regular attacks and also unleash a heavy-hitting special move with the tap of a button. It feels very rewarding and easy to use. Uh-oh, my casual side is enjoying this, which means competitive players must hate this game. Not a whole lot of innovations other than that, but it's worth noting that the load times are actually bearable now. The online service is also pretty great in this game. When going online, your avatar, which you create, is dropped into this massive arcade where you can roam around and play with others who are also in that arcade. It's very cool, I like it a lot. The different sections of the arcade denote the different modes you can play. There's even a separate little area themed around a beach, which is dedicated to Tekken Ball. Wait, Tekken Ball? Tekken Ball is back? I haven't seen you since Tekken 3, you old pirate! Oh man, PlayStation All-Stars prophesied your return, but I didn't believe them. What a legend! You've earned that top placement. All jokes aside, this game has had plenty of love poured into it. It seems to me like the developers are just as big a fan of the games as I am. Which means the story mode is probably in good hands. The story. The aspect of this game which I've been both looking forward to and also dreading. The way Tekken 7 left things was obviously a setup for a sequel, but the narrative poignancy really made things feel conclusive, you know? It was a tragic end for a feud between father and son. No one was in the right here, and the abrupt ending they gave us felt fitting to me. So I'm a little worried to see how they continue it here. But I suppose there's no real way to move past that other than to just start it up. Okay. I can't believe that I didn't even consider that Namco might do this. The entire epic stemmed from a single issue. The Devil Gene. It's what made Heihachi kill his own family. It's what allowed Kazuya to take control of the world. It's what drives Jin to stay alive and keep on fighting. The last loose end to tie is the devil which resides in the final members of the Mishima clan. And we've seen what Jin will do to rid the world of it. And now that Heihachi's gone, what else is left but to do just that? This story picks up 6 months after Tekken 7's. With Heihachi out of the way, Kazuya now runs the world, and he begins the 8th King of Iron Fist tournament as a way to decide which countries are spared and which are sacked. Jin, wanting to stop him, decides that the best way to get near him is by joining. He does so and manages to eventually see his father again after meeting some eccentric characters along the way. Keep an eye on this one, I got a feeling should be important later. As Jin takes his chance to finish things, he sees what Kazuya was planning all along. He divided the world and began a new conflict to achieve the same thing that his son sought during the events of Tekken 6, but not for the same reason. Kazuya summons Azazel specifically to siphon its power and become fully devil himself. There is no longer a man here. This thing is what remains of Kazuya. After a tactical retreat, 2 noble sacrifices, and a regrouping of forces, our heroes once again go on the offensive. Jin is drawn to his place of upbringing where his mother's spirit resides. Here, he confronts the devil that opposes him within his own mind and finally comes to terms with his past. The atrocities he'd committed for what turned out to be nothing, the hatred he bore for his father's transgressions, the evil presence which remained within his being. After years of internal torment and self-loathing, he's finally okay. He accepts that this awful power is within him, and that it's not the power itself which defines him, but what he does with it that matters. And with that, the true power he'd always had but never understood reveals itself. He saves his precious friends from his father in an all-or-nothing bout, a clash of spirit and intent, love and envy, selflessness and selfishness. They're both sure in their intentions, but Kazuya is still too much. In his final moments before his father's strongest attack destroys him, Jin is confronted once again. After everything he's done, how could he forgive himself? How could he allow himself to want to live? Sometimes you just need a loving but firm hand to remind you of something that you've lost sight of. You are loved, and you deserve a second chance. With this merging of the devil gene and the Kazuma bloodline, Jin's final form is achieved. One made up of the same power that makes up his father, but enhanced with the holy and cleansing power of the Kazuma lineage. And finally, Jin's ultimate goal since he'd found out about his devil power comes to fruition.
様、その姿はまさか。おのれ。これは浄化の力か。支配し、ねじ伏せる。それこそが力だ。邪魔者を守り、未来へつなぐ。そのための力だ。
He and his father are both wiped clean of this burden of power. The power which made Kazuya's evil intent so devastating, and the power which allowed Jin to stop it, is now passed away. And there's only one final thread to cut before the entire story is resolved.
あんなものは手段の一つに過ぎん。ならば、お前は俺がここで止める。俺の前に立つならば、誰であろうと殺す。
I forgot how much I love Jin because of how much I love Heihachi. It's not that I ever stopped loving Jin, but more that it was overshadowed, you know? And now that I've finished this story mode, I am so grateful to the Tekken team for reminding me of this character's journey. This story began as a clash between father and son, and it has now ended with a clash between father and son. As much as it hurt to see Heihachi's story come to an end in the last game, I believe it was the right choice, because it meant that the hatred between Kazuya and Heihachi was finished, and the relationship between Kazuya and Jin could finally follow suit. This franchise raised me. It's kind of scary to say, I think it's finished its job. The conflicts, the epic moments, the comedic bits, the things that I've loved throughout this entire collection. Jin has taught me in this story to look at the past and know when it's time to move on. The story that I've followed, that I've known and loved from day one until now, it's over. You know what? I think I'm okay with that. It feels almost disingenuous to put this on a tier list now. If you watched all the way to this point, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this, because I certainly did. This entire video was basically one big excuse to play all of the Tekken games. I just hope the video quality is at an okay level. Thank you for watching. God bless you. Hopefully I get to see you again soon. Just realized I wasn't supposed to be wearing my headphones this my bit. The audio design is Oh, come on. I think the safest option for me is to put this in combatant. Now this is not a large device, which is both impressive and a hindrance. It's impressive because it's incredible that something like Tekken Dark Resurrection can run so well on this game, on this console. Frick! Now this is not a large device, which is both impressive and a hindrance. Impressive because everything runs so well on it despite its size, but it's a hindrance because, well, it's so small. What are the words? Because it doesn't make for the most comfortable play experience, for goodness sake. But that's to be expected. Every game since Tekken 3 has had improved graphics, so... Oh, wrong side. Jeez, gave me a fright kill. So dumb, bro. So dumb. If you haven't realized it by now, death's in... Just bit my tongue. So that does hurt the gameplay a wee bit, but it still works. I mean, it feels exactly how you'd expect. There's not a whole lot more to say about this game, honestly. Oh, hell. It's almost as bad as Death by Degrees when it comes to Tekken-ness. Tekken-ness. Due to Tag 2's failure that we mentioned earlier, Namco blessed the dev team with a much smaller budget, for goodness. Look, I get it, right? Arcades back then were a sure bet. People wanted to go there, socialize, and spend their money. But nowadays... This! Oh. Say hello. Oh, you didn't like that. I'm sorry.